This is video 3 for chapter 8. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Hammond postulate. Now, the Hammond postulate, as you can see in the definition here, is a situation that occurs when the transition state is more similar to the species that is closer to energetically. So what do I mean by that? So if we're looking here at the picture, you can see in this example that the intermediate is closer in energy to this transition state up here that is labeled as being late, okay, then as compared to the reactants. So the reactants are actually going to be have a greater difference in this transition state. So this is called late because it's closer energetically to the intermediate here, or I guess what you could say the product of this first step. An early transition state is shown over here, where the transition state is closer in energy to its starting material, which happens to be this intermediate here. So in both of these examples, we're really ignoring the rest of what's happening. So in the late transition state, you're just looking at the part of the reaction that goes from reactants to intermediate, and you're saying, oh, hey, this intermediate over here is the product of this first step and is closer in energy to the transition state. And in the second transition state over here, the one that we call early, we're saying that the starting material, or the reactant over here, which is the intermediate, is closer in energy to it than the products down here. So let's try an iClicker question. So at this point, why don't you pause the video and try this iClicker question on your own, and then we'll go over it. Okay, so let's see how you did. The answer for this clicker question is D. Hopefully you got D. D is the early transition state, because if you're looking at kind of this point where my laser pointer is here, this is the reactant for D, and it is closer in energy to that top point of that transition state here than it is to E. E is all the way down here. So you can see I'm kind of labeling the distance with the laser pointer. So you can see the greater distance in energy from D to E versus the energy from D to this intermediate here. So if you picked A is not correct because it is a reactant. E is a product. B is also a transition state, but B is going to be a late transition state. And C is also a transition state, but is going to be a late transition state. All right, let's move on to the next iClicker question. Again, pause the video and give this one a try and see if you can identify the intermediate. Okay, so hopefully you were able to figure out that the intermediate here is B. A would be a reactant. And then over here you have C and D. Those are both transition states. And E, of course, is going to be the products.